Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking part of your busy schedule to attend to this interview and answer some of our questions. Just as a starter, one of your colleagues, the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, has been in the news recently, saying that northern appointees in the cabinet of President Bola Tinubu need to speak out more about the successes of the administration, and that that is not being done. What's your view on that?
Thank you. I believe every appointee has an obligation to, within the area of responsibility he or she has been assigned, and even maybe beyond, to communicate with the public appropriately, irrespective of region. And there is a lot to say, for example, in this government. Secondly, we also respect space. For example, we have the Minister of Information. We have media aides of Mr. President who have been very, very active, who organize, in addition to the occasional briefings, who even organize sessions for aspects of the government that needs to be communicated and needs to be interrogated by the media in sessions. And that is also the need to show that this is a government that is not afraid of answering the hard questions, because it's a government that is led by a leader, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is both magnanimous and humble, who came to the presidency with the conviction that he will draw the line in order to make Nigeria better. And he's somebody who have always acknowledged that Nigeria's fault lines needs to be managed so that public officers are taken to task rather than personality or exploitation of the fault lines, especially for somebody who every part of the country contributed in making the president of Nigeria very commendably so. So from the north, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done very well. He is somebody whose personal conduct as a politician and as a Nigerian has been outstanding. He has built relationship across the country. I didn't know President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu during the campaign or immediately before the campaign. I know him over 30 years ago. And I'm just one of several others that tell me the same thing. And he has supported the unity of our country. He has supported people from the north who sought political power, even when he is in a position to seek it for himself. And from late Shehu Musa Yaradua, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the current National Security Advisor Malam Nuhu Ribadu, and former President Muhammadu Buhari. And so, not surprisingly, the North were very, very exuberant to also support him. Not just because he has done all this, but in addition to the fact that he has a capacity. So to suggest that the North, to the extent that somebody, there is a unified voice, which there are many groups that have been saying different views. But for me, as a political appointee, but maybe more than a political appointee, for me that is Tim Asiwaju, both before and now in government. I know that what he has done in the last 10 months has been outstanding. First, some of the bold steps that all the presidential candidates in fact said should be taken, which is the removal of fuel subsidy. He took it in day one. The regulation of the foreign exchange market, so that our country, investors can return to our country. And it's not an issue of blame game. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided that he would not play blame game. But Nigeria have been hesitant in taking some actions that it should have taken decades ago. We want to be like Asian countries. We want to grow like Brazil. But Brazil and those Asian countries that we want, we are competing with, or with whom we measure ourselves, have taken measures that we needed to have taken decades ago. And he's bold to acknowledge that let's do it now. And these measures are some of the in the immediate short run, some of them have consequences, which we acknowledge. And that is why, again, a number of measures are introduced in order to ameliorate. These measures are helpful to Nigeria, irrespective of North or South, because they are measures that are to restore macroeconomic stability, to restore security in the country, and make it better so that investors will feel confident. And equally, the security effort has been outstanding. A lot of the gains of the past have been improved upon, particularly in many parts of northern Nigeria. And the budget itself, so President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu have so far been involved with 3 budgets. He inherited a budget that was passed in May 2023, which is the 819 billion naira supplementary appropriation. He renegotiated that budget with the National Assembly. He said to them that we need about 500 billion out of that money in order to support the vulnerable that might be affected by the interventions we intended to take. And they agreed with him and provided 200 billion naira out of it for agricultural intervention, 100 billion naira for CNG buses, another 75 billion for MSMEs, and 50 billion for nano credit. And that was, I think, the commendable first step. And secondly, the second supplementary of 2023 in October, which was in the sum of 2.17 trillion. And this is a budget, this is a supplementary budget that was for infrastructure, was to meet the obligations and promises made to the labor wage awards as part of the wage negotiation, and to provide additional cash transfer to Nigerians. The bulk of it was to security services. Security is everyone's business. When you spend on security, everyone becomes better off. And the whole idea of that is to ensure that our security are funded better, even while we are not where we want to be. And then the 2024 budget appropriation, these budgets are budgets for Nigeria. They are not intended to favor or reward any particular zone. They are meant to provide the basis for the restoration of macroeconomic stability, resumption of macroeconomic growth, investments and employment across the country. And we are confident that that is being done. And which are the biggest ministries in terms of spending? They among them will rank agriculture. The two ministers in agriculture are from the north. Among them will be education. The two ministers in education are from the north. Among them is defense. The two ministers again are from the north. The Ministry of Health, Ministry of Works also is not the gentleman is from the south. Is not from the southwest. So even the ministries that are the biggest spenders cannot lend themselves to the assertion that the budget is in any way shaped to deny any part of Nigeria. So to conclude, yes, I don't think politicians or other appointees have been shy of talking about, but maybe there's need to do more.
Okay, thank you, sir. So you don't believe what's his name? Baba Ahmed. Baba Ahmed, who made that statement, because he actually said something triggered that incident. He was describing the Northern Elders as a political paperweight, and so Matawale had to come. Baba Ahmed had to come out, to ask him to apologize. And only recently, Senator Kabiru Marafa also asked the Minister of State for Defense to apologize to the Northern leaders. So what is your take on this?
I think, first, I'm not witness to the words that were used by both, okay, in terms of what did they actually use. But generally, I know that Matawale, and indeed all of us Nigerians, are culturally sensitive to what is called an elder. Even where we disagree, we disrespect, and it's a part of our cultural form. It doesn't mean we don't disagree, but I think we hardly describe people. We take position against the issue, and it's across the country. I have seen many Northerners who, from time to time, have taken difference with either the body of elders on issues. I have seen it in the southwest. I have seen it in the southeast. There are many people who will go against the, or rather, view of Afenifere, but not maybe not disparage that while not agreeing with them. The same thing with Ohanaze or Arewa Consultative Forum. But the central issue is that our President Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had campaigned in the north, among other places, We were with him during those campaigns. We know what Northerners expected of him. We know what he promised. And those are the measures you start with evaluating any politician. And since he became president, he has worked hard to ensure that what he does reflect his campaign promises, what he does reflect what he believes has been asked of him by a constituent part of the country, and in his effort to ensure that so there is, we across the north, he is respected, and all, sorry, I can't speak for everyone, but majority believe in what he's doing and are thankful to him for the unity and the commendable policies that, even though causing occasional dislocations, but they can relate to the long-term goals. So we are in again, we are in politics. When you are managing two things, a reform and politics, somebody may always express view that seems to suggest or is suggestive of they are talking on behalf of others. But all of us northern extraction in the cabinet knows how fair-minded, how magnanimous President Asiwaju is. For example, I am the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning. I don't feel second to anybody in the cabinet.
Thank you, sir. I mean, you talked about how you campaigned for him in the north, and one of your former colleagues that also played a major role when you all were governors to declare support for Asiwaju was the former governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna. Somehow, you all left him out. He's not part of the government. How do you feel that your colleague that you played the major role together to build this government was dropped out of the system? What's your thinking about that?
Well, I don't. Well, again, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu nominated Nasir El-Rufai, His Excellency former Governor of Kaduna State Nasir El-Rufai, into the cabinet, and his name was taken to the National Assembly. So I think, again, that shows character, that shows promise keeping by President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But rightly or wrongly, or rather, constitutional democracy is based on separation of powers. The National Assembly has been given a constitutional role. Sorry, the Senate has been given a constitutional role in the confirmation process. If they decide to deny any one of us they are approving their confirmation power, the president is handicapped by our constitution to do everything. Is it fair? That is how the laws have been set up. Why did the National Assembly not confirm him? I wish they have done so.
But sir, are you people in touch with him?
Yes.
In touch with
yes.
Because some people believe that if the president had intervened, we know that we operate separation of power, but if the president had intervened, probably the National Assembly would have cleared everybody.
That's why I said, so this is now in the realm of speculation, what was done. But what was objective is that he nominated him. We know that his name was read. He went to the National Assembly, he answered all the questions that were asked, that were asked of him, or some were stepped down. So that's an objective. That is what happened. I can't answer speculatively but I believe for a president, for your list to be taken to the National Assembly, the president is the best measure of president's willingness and confidence in the person.
I mean, still talking about former Governor Rufai, but now to your own ministry, budget and economic planning. You raised something recently which many Nigerians have been concerned about, the use of petrol subsidy. He said, and facts show that the landing cost of petrol now is almost 1,000 naira. So whether the government admits it or not, the NNPC, through a system of recovery, is still subsidizing petrol. And yet there is no budgetary allocation for subsidy. What's really the true situation with petrol subsidy in Nigeria now?
Okay. Thank you. First, we are combining both law and public policy. The Petroleum Industry Act created a company, made the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to be a limited liability company with a board and to function as a private company. And then the public policy decision, rightly, commendably, and boldly, that we can't, as a nation, afford fuel subsidy. A decision that I am in support of, and I'm still in support of. And so, but the policy has been affected and is still being affected. But sometimes we are confusing, many people are confusing spot price movements and the policy decision. A policy operates in average. That I remove subsidy does not mean prices of petroleum will change on a daily basis. Because even airlines that many of us are privileged to use occasionally, or big transportation companies, their fuel cost does not change in the day, but it's an average. So our policy on fuel subsidy stands, but we don't control the daily movement of prices. But as a policy decision, we have decided that we wouldn't be paying subsidy. However, exchange rate movement can affect petroleum prices. So that brings more pressure on our oil traders to hedge, knowing that there is no subsidy, or to take measures that will ensure that consistent with the policy decision. Maybe they will not be able to make as much profit as they were making before, but the top lock, that's life. So the policy remains.
I was just going to say, in clear terms, sir,
yes,
government does not pay subsidy as we speak.
No,
so
that's why the government can only pay subsidy if there is a subsidy demand on it. And yes, the landing cost may be higher, but what I'm saying is you don't change. It's just like exchange rate. If you look at the budget, we use 800 naira for exchange rate. Exchange rate any day may be at variance with that, lower or higher. But why did we use 800? Based on all our computations, hope is that the average throughout the year will be 800 naira. So it's the same thing with fuel subsidy. We removed fuel subsidy on May 29th, 2023, and we are not paying subsidies. In January 2024, however, exchange rate unification Another commendable move by the monetary authorities made the exchange rate to spike, which affect prices of landing. Of course, it will affect landing cost. But again, since that height of January 2024, we are now seeing a tapering downwards of the exchange rate, such that as we pray, by the year end, the average exchange rate will even out to 800, and then the claim for subsidies are not computed in a day, even if there is a claim. So even though the spike have affected the naira landing cost of oil prices, but we believe by the year end, all the gains will ensure that no subsidy payment is affected.
Talking about subsidy and budgetary provisions, as the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, are you satisfied with how the National Assembly handled or treated the 2024 budget, the first full-year budget of President Bola Tinubu?
Government is a work in progress. I commend the National Assembly because first, it's a transition year budget. Why is it significant to call it as such? Under our Fiscal Responsibility Act, the presentation of medium-term and expenditure framework should precede the presentation of a budget. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's public knowledge was sworn in May 29th, 2023. And he took bold measure from that day that affects the medium-term expenditure framework, which should have been ready for presentation to the National Assembly by then. And understandably, like I said, maybe the government that was departing felt we should respect the person who is coming in a media. Maybe that is one of the things that we should also interrogate, this issue of our transition happens mid-year and then is not aligned with the budget process. So there was a bit of a lag because caused by the transition between the presentation of the medium-term expenditure framework, which should be approved before the presentation of the budget. But the National Assembly was magnanimous in spite of all that lag to work harder. And like I said, they did the supplementary budget of 2.17 trillion naira. I didn't hear complaints about that by Nigerians. We commend all the expenditure was for largely, like I said, security and infrastructure, and so that's the first major. Maybe people tend to gloss that over. Like I said earlier, also he renegotiated the 819 billion naira budget. Again, I don't hear any complaint about that. Then the 2024 budget, I commend them because despite the challenge of time, they were able to suspend rules, suspend their holiday, and consider the appropriation in time for it to be passed to respect the January to December cycle. That is commendable. That shows cooperation. What followed thereafter, and that's interesting, that National Assembly members have been accused, or we all have been, government of National Assembly members have introduced into the budget projects that were not submitted in the proposal and passing into law the Congressional Budget Office and Empowerment Act of 1974. So this is not unique to Nigeria. Secondly, I have cause to say this in another interview, that National Assembly members, as indeed all elected members, are under pressure from constituents for projects and programs of government that will benefit the constituencies. Are they justified in seeking the inclusion of projects or programs? I guess they are. As Minister of Budget, daily before the budget, I receive letters, understandably consistent with my role, for interest groups, members representing constituencies, former, who will request that can government kindly consider this project, this road is dilapidated, we want a new road here, we want erosion control here, we want borehole here. And all this forms an input in the budget process. It's not a monologue, it's a project of, and that is, so it's a reflection of our choice of the democracy. And maybe we are not, I think, in my modest view, and I have interacted with civil society organizations, a lot of them, both before and after the budget. I say, please come and help us so that we can tease out what is it that Nigerians are not happy about. If money is put in the budget and that project is not done, whether for a constituency project or that's crime. Let's go after the person. Whatever is put in the budget, we should ensure that it must be done, or the money must not be utilized for anything but what the law says. Then, maybe last but not least, is the efficiency of the constituency projects. And again, that is something I noticed many people fail to appreciate the diversity of our country, in the sense that today maybe somebody who is living in Maitama or a Tiosa in Lagos may think that a water project, these are boreholes, this is what people spend and do in their homes. But a member, a senator or National House of Reps member who is representing a rural community, to them the value of that water project is different from the value. So you can pass judgment and say, why will government do a borehole? But maybe that borehole has significance and a lot. So my invitation is that civil society, enlightened society, should play a role in interrogating the budget, in the sense that these projects, are they being implemented? How do we support their implementation? And how do we also put pressure so that elected members will cooperate among themselves in order to ensure that we prioritize better?
Well, the other side of the budget insertions that you appear not to speak about is multiple insertions of the same project. The budget is in law. So, for example, if you look at the budget of the Agricultural Council of Nigeria, the National Assembly increased it from, for example, Tinubu's proposal from about 2 billion to about 22 billion. There were multiple insertions of the same project. There was a 500 million naira project that was repeated 4 times in a law in Nigeria. Why is the president not complain about that, because in the process of making insertion, the National Assembly are essentially ridiculing what should be in Nigerian budget. So
Thank you. Okay.
Multiple insertions, and what's your view on it?
Okay, in addition, some of these items were even placed on agencies that are not relevant. So what do you have to say?
Thank you very much. Alleged multiple inside. What is a budget? A budget is a law which gives the executive right to spend up to what was appropriated for items that were. If there is a project that is inserted twice or multiple inside, nothing stops. There is a procedure, because budget is just one element. It doesn't take away from the public procurement process. It doesn't stop any literate member of society from saying there's a mistake here. There's what do you call it? There's multiple insertions here. Sometimes there is an explanation, sometimes there is not. And we are not pretending. We are humble to acknowledge wherever we are wrong. It's a human process, and we will lead it. And that's what comes to my point. If there is anything, any element that is of wrongdoing, we owe it to ourselves. We should also be tasked. The Minister of Budget, just like somebody should write me that we noticed this thing. And it guides us, it helps us, it's work in progress, so that either in the procurement process, we deal with that, or in the release, or in where such projects maybe come to Federal Executive Council. These are participatory processes that should continue both before and after the budget. And we are humble. Where we are, President Aswaju have always said, I'm human. And we are all human. And we are ready to be corrected where we are wrong. Equally, projects in agencies that are alleged not to have mandate. I think is the second question. Where will a ministry or an MDA execute, or rather be seen to be given power by the National Assembly to execute a project that is not seemingly within? No, well, I think there are two issues. Sometimes relevant to you may be relevant to somebody, may look irrelevant to you, but which may not appear to be in its traditional mandate. And again, yes, it may be so, but that is where sometimes this citizen action is important, because we have to tease out. Sometimes it may not be so. It may look so immediately, but maybe you want also an explanation from the other side. And where it is so, let's use it to improve the process. We are not going to, government is work in progress. Much as we are making effort to clean, to make better, but it will take time to get 100%. Before we don't publish budgets, we get this information because Nigeria, and go and Google it, see how many countries publish their budget details. Maybe even in the OECD countries, you don't see their budget details. So the fact that we even took it upon ourselves to publish our budget details so that anybody can comment, that's what even gives us the information. But what do we do with it? We don't just condemn. We should say, well, this is a starting point. I will interrogate, I will comment, and a lot of civil society organizations do so in a systemic manner. One of them, I know, Budget. They even come, they even make a presentation. That is responsible citizenry. They have been to see me. They have the right to come and see me, as they also have the right to interrogate. But like I told you again, the budget should not be equated with implementation, because even in the implementation phase, public procurement phase, memos to President Executive, a lot of these things might come up and be dealt with.
So you are saying that media who do investigations, for example, we have done a lot of investigations that show infractions in budgetary allocation. So money is, for example, released based on the budgetary allocation that a new place should be built. Instead of a new one being built, the lawmaker just refurbishes a building there. Whether it's, are you saying that when the media does such investigations that show clear infractions and it's related to the budget, they should bring such in your office too, so that it can...
Yes, please. We have investigative bodies. They are involved with the budget process. In fact, that's how we are helping. We have, in the ministry, we have an IMAC project. The Presidential Advisor on Policy Coordination has just launched another. All these are because without that last mile effort, nobody has all the answers. It is helpful to the process for a community to say what we saw in the budget as a borehole that is being built for our community has not been built. But that should be communicated to somebody appropriately. If we are all presumptuous, maybe we do not, you can even award the contract. What if you have been awarded the contract, but maybe, so there is news there that the contract has been awarded, but what if the contractor tells you the money has not been released to him? Then because we have in the budget, roads, most common example, Abuja, Lokoja, Benin, that has been on the budget for 16 years. So without interrogating, you may pass judgment.
Okay, sorry. Before I go, there was a question I wanted to ask. But before I go into that, you talked about implementation. Can you let us know a bit about the performance of the 2023 budget?
The 2023 budget, like I said, number one, is a transition year budget, and there are three. Literally, it's three in one. The main budget that was passed in January, signed into law, in January 2023, and the two supplementary appropriation, one of 819 billion, and then one of 2.17 trillion. At the end of the year, Mr. President, consistent with his powers, requested the National Assembly to extend the implementation of the 2023 budget.
The capital component.
The capital component. Because up to now, again, this is something that we will welcome debate. Our procurement process maybe can be aligned better, and not surprisingly, Mr. President had directed a committee of which I'm a member to review the public procurement process, because sometimes from commencement to award may be upward of six months. So you can imagine we were, the National Assembly magnanimously passed a supplementary appropriation in October, and then the year ends in December. So the procurement process takes time, and then the government, the government, we succeeded, introduce a new mechanism of enhancing budget efficiency, which is called top to bottom cash management, meaning if a ministry is going to award a contract, previously what used to happen is you send the money to the ministry. But now you say, no, let the ministry do the procurement process, let them award, and then request for what they need, maybe to pay the advance, and once they receive certificate, so that cash is pooled together, rather than all ministries are holding money, awaiting for work performance. So all these have placed a burden on the system, to the extent that the 2023 appropriation had to be extended again to June 2024. And again, one thing about 2023 budget is that between January to May, we were paying subsidy. So a lot of the money, this is January to May 2023, so a lot of the money, of over 2 trillion, was used for subsidy payment, and therefore there wasn't much money to do capital projects. So it affected the ability. It was latter part of the year that the removal of subsidy led to more funds in the for capital and even for other.
There's something they call unused or utilized for. I can't remember the exact word. What is the government doing about it?
Unused
funds. That is, if a ministry has allocated some money and it does not use that money.
Unspent.
Yeah, unspent. Maybe unspent. Yeah. You understand now? Do you take the money? Because I remember that the very first time ministries, MDAs returned more funds they didn't use was in 2011. And that was the time Bankole was speaker. And Bankole boosted about that because they had to ask the MDAs to return all the money they didn't spend. So what is the problem?
I think, you see, whatever system you take in budgeting might have its advantages and disadvantages. If you are Minister of Works or Ministry of Works and you are doing a road project that is going to go on for the next 3 years, and this is December, you have X amount of money, 10 billion, 20 billion in their account for that project, do you return it to the treasury, or do you keep it in the ministry in order to be able to meet certificate payment as and when due, so that the project does not suffer? I think the key word is, whichever you decide to do, the key word is transparency. But each one has its own merit and demerits, because if I want to balance completion, that's why I said we now have a bottom cash management plan, where if the contract is 10 billion, the 10 billion is not advanced to the MDA at the same time, but the MDA will do the procurement and say that we require X amount, maybe 3 billion for advance payment. And that's what they receive, so that the cash management is maintained by the accountant, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Thank
you very much, sir. Just 2 questions, one from my colleague, Kabir, last one from me. Kabir.
So, thank you, the Minister. Now, the President speaks on, how budgetary reforms stimulating the economy without engendering inflation will be instituted. However, because of combination of factors that you've mentioned also, the inflation keeps getting higher. Now, I'm wondering what the administration is doing, to bring down inflation.
Thank you. The budget. So every budget have multiple constituencies that are looking at the budget. There are investors there, domestic and local, who are looking at a budget as signaling tool. What does the government, and that will determine whether they put money in that economy or not. So the first balancing act is, what budget do I do that investors and the people with wealth will take me seriously? Then the dreams, the aspirations. Many people, like I said, they have demand for good and services. We want the road in our community. We want unemployment benefit. We want. So you have to balance the two. So strategically, what we did in 2024 was to aim to reduce deficit. And that has resonated very well with the investing public and rating agencies who rate countries, and also to increase capital spending. The capital of the 2024 budget is 39%. This is the highest that it has been since 1999. Then the lag. So whatever policy I do, no matter how good it is, there will be a lag period. It can be a week, it can be a month before the benefit comes. We are not unmindful that the reforms we have may endanger some form of inflation. But for example, in the last 2 weeks, we have seen, consistent with what we anticipated, that inflation is beginning to taper down. I have seen headlines. I think one newspaper in the last 1 week, the front page story is on declining prices of rice. Today I saw equally in one of the major main street newspapers declining. We have seen how the foreign exchange rate has been and been a major determinant of inflation in Nigeria. We believe in a short while, maybe 2 months, we'll begin to see the effect of this more remarkably on inflation. And then the measures that are being taken to boost production, domestic production.
All right, sir. Just last questions from us, to take your time. And there are 2 in one questions, and we believe we are in the best position to answer both. One is the Lagos-Calabar coastal road and budgetary allocation for it, and what government is actually planning to spend as its own contribution for the project. We want the truth from you about that project. The second side is, yesterday the House of Reps organized a discussion around state policing. You have created an interview in the past where you are opposed to state police. President Bola Tinubu is in support of it. Has the position changed on state policing, and what's your correct position on it?
Thank you. Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road had been on our development plan for long. This is a road that should have been built. Previous administrations have been interested in doing so, and it is our belief that it is a road that has a significant multiplier effect that will catalyze development. And again, that reflects the realities. There are projects when you want to do, particularly in a developing country, there are not many people who have the resources and the capacity to help you do them. So you have to negotiate with those. That has bedeviled a lot of PPP projects, because even if you publish them on the papers, you don't know who is serious, who is not. So it's better you negotiate with somebody who can help you deliver them. Today, maybe if you look at the Lekki reclamation project, somebody will easily say, I could have done this differently. They didn't advert. But today, I believe whoever loves Nigeria will be proud of that project. So projects that a lot of these projects are being planned. Asuwaju is planning to ensure that the rail networks are given priority and completed. He's talking about a Sokoto to Badagry highway also. So our president is profound, is a dreamer, but let us also be careful that if we are just eager to criticize, we can even demoralize potential partners that may want, because they look at this thing. If somebody is lending money to them, he said, but there's public opposition to this. Why will you want me? So we have to commend imagination while not sacrificing the right to interrogate. And then you...
No, but the budgetary allocation for it, was there actually, what's the budgetary plan?
We have, like I said, we have inherited. So what we have inherited is a budget process where you will see in the budget what is deemed to be appropriation has something been mentioned in the project, in the budget, not the amount that has been allocated. So if you look at our budget today, and I invite you to, when you have more, look at it again, you will see close to 2,000 roads mentioned. When you see the sums indicated, they won't even do a kilometer or 1% of those. But the public procurement process allows the ministry to say, this is what can be done this year. So even where the appropriation is inadequate, you go back and seek more. It doesn't mean when it is a 13 trillion or 10 trillion or 1 trillion naira contract, you must have it appropriated as such in order to award it. That is not the budget process we have in Nigeria. Maybe
we asked this question because we were confused when the former vice president said 400 million was going to spend. And
sorry?
The former vice president Atiku Abubakar he mentioned a certain amount that was going to be spent on that project. Then the Minister of Works came out with another figure, 15 trillion naira. So we were a bit confused. So that is why we want it cleared. You know.
I think I've answered that. But again, like I said, let us know that the world is not waiting for us. If we present ourselves wrongly to the world, even investors will not have the capacity or the support. And we go around the world, we see other countries doing better in these areas. Our President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu believes in due process, and we will welcome any kind of interrogation. But let's not be hesitant in just condemning. I always give the example of Dangote refinery. Everyone who goes there will be proud to be associated with it. But maybe somebody will say, how was it? How did he get this land 7 times the size of Victoria Island? At the time that it was not built, somebody may think, this is, how can you could give somebody? But I think we will all be proud that land has been made available. Imaginative, transformative project that we require, that we see in other climates, require responsibility, responsiveness, and accountability.
Then on state police, sir, position, you are granted an interview when you're a governor, where you said you were opposed to state police. When you were senator, sorry.
Yes.
Now, your government, your president is fully in support of...
I support my president. Does not mean, I said it already. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu understand dissent. I'm not changing my view. I agree with him but I have the right to express my view. There are many people who might have a view and meet a superior argument. But it doesn't even those. Yesterday I was at the what do you call it? I was sorry. Yes, I was at the dialogue on state policing. Even the opening statement by the deputy speaker, he spoke about many issues that needs to be appreciated in order that we can do it right. We have had, so it's not, even for whether for or against, there are issues, and that is what is important. But I'm not flip-flopping. I was opposed to it as a senator, but superior argument and logic and